Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. There it is. I hit recording, and it is recording. Hello, everyone listening to my voice out there on the internet. Hey, I've got a great guest today. I can't wait to introduce you to her. She's a marketing leader and a coach. So a lot of the things you're going to hear today, if you like it, maybe you work with her and she'll teach you these things, coach you through. We're going to talk more about that. But she has been named as Best in Class Marketers Top 50 from Kapost, winner of the top Female ABM Leader. We will definitely get her thoughts on the ABM today, as well as just best practices, marketing technology and best practices in Intuit. Masha Finkelstein, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Man, you're busy.
Yep. I'm not really sitting around these days, even though I am literally sitting in one place, as all of us are.
Right. And before we go anywhere, you got to tell everyone about your background. I saw this for those listening, check out YouTube at some point, because the background is this amazing, like, outside patio with all the walls are windows and they're open to this luscious green garden. And it's a background, but tell me what you had shared this morning about it.
Yeah, actually, it's one of the most clever COVID-related marketing campaigns I've seen that Airbnb did a couple of months ago. I got an email from Airbnb saying, hey, we know you're stuck at home and can't travel right now. Well, here are some virtual backgrounds for your Zoom meetings of actual Airbnb destinations. And I, of course, downloaded all of them, and now I use them, and I'm very much used to those lovely destinations. And I can't wait to go there. So go Airbnb.
Yeah, what a brilliant campaign, because, you've been working there. So with that background, it's like you've been there, but not really. And when you went to get a drink of water, I saw you sort of disappear, and you actually walked out the same way that the door is open on your background. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, I could see you totally I want to go there now. And I've just been looking at it for like 5 minutes. What am I going to be feeling after an hour and change staring at this background? Do you know where this one's at? The one right now? Does it tell you?
It tells you in the email and in the website, but yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Like they're all over the world, actually.
But like, I think I would want to specifically go to like the one that I'd been in the background. Like, sign me up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant to just make use of those backgrounds. And then now I'm talking about it. They've got their logo on the picture, so they're getting a free advertisement in the Hardcore Marketing Show. It's brilliant, to your point.
Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, let's start the show off. The way we do this is let me pass you this thing real quick. It's heavy. Ugh. Okay, here you go. This is Thor's hammer. Got it? Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that. You just grabbed that thing. It's awesome. Didn't even need an introduction. You're just like, recognized it. Smash that thing on top of some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Just set the record straight once and for all.
All right. So since I do love talking about ABM, we can start there.
Yes.
One of the biggest misconceptions I see around account-based marketing is that it's only applicable if you go after large enterprises.
Okay.
And it's a myth, let me tell you, from personal experience. You can use account-based marketing principles to target smaller businesses, mid-sized, small businesses.
Interesting.
Absolutely, you can.
So that helps if you don't sell to big companies or just
exactly. Yeah. Like if your primary target audience is mid-market or SMBs, you can still use account-based marketing methods to advertise to them, to speak to them.
Got it. Why do you think people have this misconception? Where did that come from, and what's going on in their heads when they're getting this wrong?
Yeah, well, the way that account-based marketing evolved, I think, has to do with it, where it's like, oh, we have these key accounts, and oftentimes the key accounts are the larger accounts, right? The big brand names that everybody wants as their case studies.
Right.
So traditionally or historically, When people hear key accounts, they immediately go into this like, oh, that must be really large organizations that everybody knows.
Mm.
But key accounts are actually not necessarily huge, right? It depends what your ideal customer profile is.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody, it could be very much a small business or a mid-size org. They might not need, your products if they are larger, in fact.
Right. Got it. So key is whatever it is for you, and it doesn't like it's like just because you don't sell that to that range, it doesn't mean you can't do ABM. Go back to doing the same terrible mass marketing you've been doing. What are the core elements that make it possible that you can go after enterprise, you can go after mid market? It doesn't matter. And it sounds like there's some. It's really the strategy of ABM that is what can apply to everyone. So what is that really?
Mm-hmm. There are a few things. The biggest challenge with any kind of ABM strategy is probably having the data to know information about your accounts and being able to map contacts and leads to those accounts, because
Mm,
you want to track everything at account level. With more traditional scale campaigns, it's not as critically important to track at account level, but when you are actually communicating with accounts, you've got to be able to see everything in one place. Like
right.
if a lead comes in, you want to know immediately that there are other contacts in your system already that have interacted from the same account with your teams. So data is crucial, and the ability to map leads and contacts to the accounts and all the marketing touches and interactions, being able to see them at account level.
Yeah, that full picture, right? Because if something comes in and there's several people on the team, I guess that's the question. Are there several people on the team in mid
Mm-hmm.
market?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah,
probably, right?
right, exactly. And that
Yeah,
will vary as well. It depends
very
on your
true.
product and your company and your target company. And
True.
it's decision maker committees, they tend to range from one to something like 25 people
Okay. Yeah.
for different size orgs. But for smaller and mid-sized businesses, it might still be 10, right?
Right.
Depending what you're selling and how complex the product is.
What if you're selling to an SMB, you're a small company, and there's only one person there?
Mm-hmm.
Does
Mm-hmm.
ABM still matter? Does it still apply?
It still applies.
Okay.
So the way that I think about small businesses and using account-based marketing there is, you think of segments of small businesses just just like you would think about one large account. So you come up with your segments of SMBs and then hyper personalize your messaging and marketing to those segments, just like you would with large enterprise accounts. Do it per account.
Got it. So you can kind of wrap a bunch of them all up together
Mm-hmm.
as your one to few, as your
Right.
industry target or whatnot. Do you still do
Exactly.
one to one with when you're an SMB, when you're a small company? Can you still do that sort of?
That also depends of what company and product you have. Like, for
Yeah.
example, if you're selling in the local market, sure, you can hand deliver something door to
Right.
door, right?
Cookies.
Yeah.
Cookies.
Well, maybe not in the shelter in
True.
place
COVID
times, but
cookies.
COVID cookies.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, COVID vaccines, I don't know. But
Right.
yeah.
Here's some. Hey, we're here with some vaccines for you guys. Oh,
Yeah.
thanks, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just roll up your
Yeah.
sleeve.
Here's a free antibody test. We'll throw it
Right.
in there if
Yeah.
you buy.
You think people have
Yeah.
done that? That'd be kind of weird as a business to be like
Yeah.
rolling up on your company. Hey, we got your COVID tests over here. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it's
It's a little.
maybe borderline
Yeah, it's a little
ethical, probably.
borderline.
Yeah, for
Vaccine.
sure.
Like some random
Yeah,
vendor swings by with a vaccine. I'm like, I'm not really sure I want to stick that on my arm.
yeah,
Not really sure.
but maybe not the COVID vaccine, but you could apply those types
Yeah.
of things to smaller businesses. And you're absolutely right. There's different ways to do ABM, right? There's one to one, and one to few, and one to many, and few
Right.
to few, if you wish,
Yep.
but all kinds of ways.
What do you think people get wrong about this? Any common mistakes, right? So for sure, they're like, okay, you can do this for any size company, but then when it comes to the application of it, actually doing ABM, do
Mm-hmm.
do people? I mean, do they just still do their old stuff and call it ABM, or what kind of mistakes do you see people make?
Um, First of all, they have a block usually,
They have a
which is
blog?
fear block. Like
Oh, a block.
they
Okay.
feel, yeah, they feel blocked because of fear of not knowing how to start, or not believing that it will work, or not having enough data to know whether it is working when they start. And yeah, I think they also kind of veer on the side of calling regular scaled approach ABM rather than the other way around, you know?
Right.
Like, oh yeah, we are doing ABM because we are going after accounts. So what that they're not prioritized, or so what we didn't use predictive scoring to come up with our list of accounts. We just picked them out of the sky, and
Right.
right, and like we are doing ABM because we have accounts and we're going after them, right? But
Right. Oh, right. Just because you have
yeah,
accounts doesn't mean you're doing ABM.
exactly. Yeah, if you just have accounts, it's not. You can't call that ABM. If you have thought about the accounts you are going after, if you used some kind of AI maybe to distill the accounts
Yeah.
and figure out actually who would be a perfect customer for you,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, you can start calling that ABM, sure.
Got it. Got it. Have you used any of those? Like, how does AI play into any things you do these days?
Yeah,
Because you hear a lot of
we
talk about it. I don't know if it's like really come into its own yet.
right. Well, think of all the predictive scoring vendors. I've definitely used a
Sure.
whole bunch of them in the past, but what it does essentially for account selection is they take your data, ingest it, look at all the signals out there,
Yeah.
and figure out the right mix of signals that would indicate that somebody is a customer of yours. Then they use those signals to find all the other companies that have them that would then be ideal customers for you. It's
Right.
very simple when you think about it, but not a lot of people do it. And I think they're missing out. Like, oftentimes sales pick accounts based on their past experience or connections, or, oh, I know this guy at this big company and we want big companies, so I'm going to go and sell into that company. So let's market to just that company. But that
Right.
doesn't mean that they're going to be a perfect customer.
No, no, it doesn't.
Right.
So you're saying you do need some of these other sources, the other things to feed your selection of that ICP. You can't just pick your
Mm-hmm.
ideal customer out of the wind.
Right, and not only demographic information, you also need to know who is actually actively in the market with
Yeah.
intent, right?
Right.
So then once you have the predictive scoring models built out using some kind of machine learning AI predictive scoring vendor, then you need to know of those companies that are your ideal customer, who is actually ready to buy. Because you don't
Right.
want to sell when they're not ready. You don't want to sell when they're just finish their budget planning for next 5 years. And the way to know it is by tracking those intent signals across channels and everywhere.
Interesting. Um, do you use that? Have you used the intent data? Do you have a particular vendor you like for that?
There's a lot of vendors that work with Bambora, for example.
Okay.
Bambora actually now has a free product on their site where you can sign up for a few keywords to monitor. Just for smaller businesses out there, check it out.
What is Bombora? Why do I not know about this?
It's an intent data vendor. You probably don't know because they work with other companies. Like they provide their data to another marketing ABM platform type companies, and you work
Oh,
with those. Like for example, Terminus or Lattice engines or something like that.
oh, got it. So they're now. Would you work with them, or you would still go and work with one of their people they provide data to? You could work
It
with them directly.
depends. It depends on who you are and how large your budget is.
Oh, gotcha.
If you have budget for an ABM scaled effort set aside, I would say go to like an ABM vendor or look at a platform or like a feature set to add to your current
Yeah.
stack. If you are small and lean and want to hack growth marketing, then go sign up for all kinds of free things like signals from Bambora website or,
Right.
you know, you can find a lot of things like that.
It's not too crazy either. I just looked at the pricing page. It's like starts at 22K annually. So
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, depending on the budget, you can just get the intent data from Bambora, or you can work with a larger vendor, like, for example, like a Dun and Bradstreet or
got it.
somebody, right? Who then would use someone like Bambora. I don't know if they actually use Bambora or another company for their intent data, but yeah, that's a different way we can do it.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like a whole different world. Do you have a best practice for that? What's like your sweet marketing stack for the intent side?
Um, I'm not going to share what we have in house, but I'll give you a couple
It's
of
cool. We can all
ideas.
just go look it up on the website anyways, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
go look at the
exactly.
tracking code later. But yeah,
Right.
I mean, you have some favorites. So you're like, get one of the other
Yeah.
vendors. Do you like getting the source data too directly, or what's the best way to approach that? Because I know that there's so many things out there. Maybe you even have advice on the best way to shop these guys.
Mm-hmm. So I actually do like signing up for free keyword alerts, whether it's Bambora or even on Google or even LinkedIn, just so I get an email with some indication of my keywords popping up.
Right.
And then I just see the context and see if I need to dig deeper or not. But that's kind of a separate staying on top of it trick that I do. And simultaneously, I do like working with ABM platforms like Sixth Sense, for example. I think they use Bambora data as well.
Okay.
Terminus, great company, love them.
Do you have a
They
favorite?
use
Can I get a favorite
uh,
out of you?
they're different, and
They're
it
different.
also
Okay.
depends. Yeah, and it also depends on the size of your org
That's
that
true.
you're working
A
with.
lot of that depends.
Right. And then like if you have Marketo, you could get their ABM suite, and that could be perfect and enough
Got
for
it.
you, right? So it really, really depends on your needs. Depending on what you're trying to do, you might need more or less features or specific things about intent data, or not even using intent data potentially. Maybe your target audience is evergreen and they always are in the buying cycle,
Right.
right?
Right. Interesting. Interesting. Cool. You got me onto a new topic there, and that question for you. Any tips like when people do go shopping for technology? Any recommendations on the things you want to look for, or the way you approach that? And then also, how do you keep your soul, not just think that tech is going to solve all your problems for you magically? Do you have a certain way of approaching all that?
Mm-hmm. I do, and that always starts with people. It's when you go after tools, and your tools usually you're trying to solve some problem that somebody has, whether it's you or somebody on the team.
Yeah.
So before going headfirst into buying something new to solve that, I try to really understand what the pain points are that people are experiencing across the board, whether it's marketing or sales or customer success. Just talk to people, see how they're feeling, what's working well, what's not. And one of my favorite things to ask that usually ends up being the most enlightening question is, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about how you do your day-to-day job? And that
Right. It's like a
question,
magic one.
yeah, exactly. And this question gets to the bottom of really deep pain points. And then if you start digging into those, like, oh, I wish I had a better bid management system. Like, well, what does it actually mean? What are you talking about, right? And they're like, well, because when we use this X vendor or this X platform, we
Right.
don't have visibility into data. I'm like, oh, so it's actually not about the bid management. It's about the access to analytics or self-service dashboards of some sort. They're like, oh yeah, you're right. I'm like, okay, great. What about this tool that we actually have you tried
Right.
using that, right? So things come up, like in the end it might become that you don't need to buy more vendors. It's
Yeah, you
very
may have the
interesting.
capability already. You can
Exactly, you
just
may have the
maximize on the tools you already
capability.
have.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Got it. I think there's another myth around ABM. It kind of came up earlier. I wonder if you could touch on this. The idea of I'm a tiny company.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the resources or the time or capability or people to be able to do ABM. And not only is it
Mm-hmm.
ABM for a big target company, but which you smashed, but can I, as like a tiny little mini company, can I still do ABM? What's your
Right.
take on
Yeah. So for fun, I like advising tiny companies.
that? Nice. It's all
About,
relative anyways, but yeah.
right. About specifically account-based marketing, generally growth strategies, but definitely that's a myth.
Okay.
You, the way you think about it, when you're a tiny company, it becomes even more important to prioritize
It
how you
does.
spend your budget
Yeah.
because you don't have a lot of it, right? So why would you waste money on targeting companies that are not relevant for you or who wouldn't buy? So you have to become really, really crystal clear about account selection and segmentation and personalization to those accounts to make sure that they see you in all
Hmm.
of the other giant competitors of yours potentially that are all beating on the same keywords or
Right.
competing on the same ad space as with you.
So you got to focus more than ever when you're small. The smaller you are, you don't
Yeah.
have room to make a bad hire or make a gigantic bad mistake on targeting or on lead sources. You got to really be calculated. So, any tips? Like, if you had like top three tips on what things you advise the smaller companies for those listening that have the smaller companies or smaller team, what kind of things they should do?
hmm If they don't have internal expertise on how to approach this,
Yeah.
outsource.
Okay.
And you don't need a full-time ABM person to get started. You just need
Okay.
somebody who you can come to for advice when you need it, who can then steer your existing marketing team to what to focus on next.
Yeah.
That's one. Like, don't be afraid to outsource this because it is a very special skill set in how you do it. And if you get it right as you get started, then you'll be way better off financially with less budget wasted on things you don't want it to be wasted on. So
Smart.
that's one. Two is don't be afraid to take risks as you get started because you don't have historic data at that point and you can't logically make all the decisions in a very
Right.
calculated way,
Right.
right? So I would even say set aside budget for trying out of the box kind of campaigns. And the chunk of budget you set aside for that could be big, like it could be like up to 50% of your marketing budget. Because if something that is completely out of whack, you just go for it and then it turns out to have 10x ROI, right?
Yeah.
True story that happened before. Then you're way better off. And people don't do it because they're like, well, we can't waste any money on these risky things because we
Well, tell
are
me about it.
such a
Like,
lean startup.
how did
Yeah.
it go down? What kind of a test was it?
It was back in the day when I was focused on display
Okay.
marketing for online education. And we were testing a lot of different creative concepts. And one of the ideas was like, well, how about we put like a child with a black eye on an ad and advertise nursing degrees online. We were doing a lot of online education degrees ads.
Oh, I
And
see. Like
so
people that really want to care and they want to help.
exactly. So it was like, well, that's like also borderline ethical, but this was also before any kind of ethical compliance was a huge
But
deal on
so
the
tell me, there's like
internet.
clip art out there with like kids with black eyes. Like, how do
Yeah.
they do that? I almost don't even know how they get the kids like that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's Photoshop, but
Oh, okay.
uh, yeah. But still, it was like, ugh, you
Hey,
do you
buddy,
want to?
Dad's got to take a photo today.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you really want your company associated with a kid with a black eye?
Right.
Maybe,
Or,
maybe not.
they, yeah,
Right?
riding
So,
their
but
bike.
it,
They could, yeah. So they get a little boo
yeah,
boo or something.
yeah,
Oh,
and
that's
it
funny.
was a big risk,
Big risk, yeah.
and we were like, well, we have to know quickly.
Right.
So we set aside a big chunk of budget towards that ad specifically,
Okay.
and it like literally 10x outperformed everything else we had.
Really? So people were just clicking on it left and right.
Exactly. Not only clicking, we were tracking full funnel conversion. So they were
Really?
signing up. Yeah, clicking and signing up more than other ads. And we're like, whoa, okay, that's interesting.
So you tracked it all the way to now signing up. Was that like the landing page, or did you get them all the way up to? Did they give money? Could you track it to revenue back in the day, like that, or was it?
No, yeah, it was just
Not
through
yet?
the landing page. But
Okay,
when you sign up at the landing page, then it's off. It was off our hands. We were kind of like a syndicator type company where we would give it to the online
got it,
institutions to follow up with, so we couldn't track it from there.
got it. But I'm sure that was some crazy result. So you really, it was a risk, and
Hmm.
were there some internal discussions when you were trying to get the budget for it, and people, no, let's
Hmm.
spend $1 on it. Like, no, we need to have a serious test. We do it.
Hmm.
To your point, the more you spend sooner, the faster you can get some numbers on it, and don't drag this out over 12 months. Let's find out really quick. What'd you do after that? Once you got the successful stats back, did you start putting all sorts of bruised children on all your ads? Or
Well, then we were like, oh, okay, this worked. Interesting. So we tried to set up multivariate tests that would test exactly what was it about the ad. Was it the black eye or the child or the sad face or, So we just like tested for different things
oh,
specifically that were in there altogether. And we came up with an ad that didn't have a child with a black eye, but worked just as efficiently based on those bunch
what
of
was it
tests.
then? Because that's cool. Because I could see like doing the exact same ad, but you just Photoshop the image to not have a bruised face.
Yeah, yeah.
Exact same ad with the bruised face, but maybe a different call to action or a different value prop. What was the magic of the particular ad when you?
Yeah, for that specific one, it was interesting because we ended up adding like a mom in there, and the sad face without the black eye with the mom next to the child kind of worked really well.
That was the mom in the first one.
No,
So,
it was part of the test.
okay,
So
but it says, but
yeah,
what?
so it's like just the child with the black eye, child with mom with the black eye, child without the black eye with the mom without the mom.
Right,
Yeah,
and the one with the mom without the black eye worked the best.
yeah,
Well, that's good. That'd be
yeah,
easier.
yeah.
um, and what was it? Did you, when you tested, were you able to test the rest of it? But could you figure out what about the original ad, since it wasn't the black eye? What do you know? What it was that caused it to be such a 10x success?
Unfortunately, with those things, it's more of an art than a science
Yeah,
oftentimes. And it's really hard to get that granular
yeah,
with the data to point out specifically what it was. Like before that ad, we did a lot of animated images. Maybe it was the fact that it was a real human and
yeah.
an emotional one with a
Right.
child. We tested people before and they always lost to the animated characters. But in that specific case,
Really?
yeah, but that was, 2005-ish,
Sure.
I'm talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
now things have changed. People don't notice people on the web anymore, or barely notice because there's
What do
so
they
many.
notice?
Good question. Movement.
They notice movement.
So video ads, any kind of short clips, animated
Yeah.
GIFs and whatnot. Yeah.
Is just a solid static display ad out the door at this point?
People still click, surprisingly. Every time I look at the stats, I'm like, wow, really? Still?
Stop clicking already.
Yeah. Yeah, but people click, just the percentages have definitely gone down a
Right.
lot in the last decade.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I love the art part to that, where you're not
Hmm.
really quite sure why something's working. Try it out. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The idea of testing and but getting results, that's fun, right? When you see like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like this is crazy. What's going on here? And you try to distill down why it is and make more of it. That's really the fun part, the mad scientist part of marketing that I really like.
Yeah, it's my favorite part too.
Yeah. Any other crazy experiments come to mind?
Crazy experiments. Mm,
Maybe I threw it off by saying crazy.
direct mail campaign, sending out laptops.
Really?
Hmm.
Direct mail was this had to be ABM because you can't send everybody a laptop.
Yes, exactly. But the fun part that comes to mind is we did this campaign, very small, very targeted test,
Yeah.
um, to our target accounts based on it was we were kind of going after smaller businesses at that time, so it was based on company size. We sent laptops to executives
Okay.
with specific titles like CEO, CTO, and CIO, I think it was,
Wow.
within those smaller companies. And it was just a test to see how it would convert. And all of a sudden, my friend calls me and he's like, "Dude, I just got a laptop from your company." I'm like, huh? What? What? And he was, I think he was working like an engineer at Facebook. I
Okay.
was like, this is really strange because we definitely didn't target engineers at Facebook,
Right.
right? But what happened is he had like a side gig type project where he had a whole company on LinkedIn where it was just him and his friend, and he was the CTO and
He
the
was the
friend was
CTO.
yeah, the
Oh, God.
CEO or something. And we apparently targeted them with laptops.
Wow. So
Yeah.
maybe not your friend getting one, but do you know if the results
The results were actually really good.
they
Like that
were?
campaign worked, and since then we've scaled
What kind of
that
laptops were
approach.
they?
Chromebooks.
They were Chromebooks. Okay. See, I'd be pretty stoked if it was like a MacBook Air. I'd be like, yeah, I like it, thank you. But
Yeah.
you definitely get people's attention. You know,
Right.
I think I've received root beer one time.
Yeah.
It was like, we can't send you a beer, so we're sending you root beer. I was like, oh, that's interesting. But apparently, it was a really rough campaign. I later talked to the marketer who did it because
Mm-hmm.
half the root beers would break in travel in transit, and then they would be shipped back to the sender, and you'd have to pay for the return shipping and then all the breakage. And
Ooh.
so apparently, it was not easy sending glass bottles. Um,
I would
I can't
imagine.
imagine they're not. I mean, they're not really careful with mail as it goes through the system. Like, but yeah, there's all sorts of different kind of tricks, and that whole laptop was it. So Chromebooks, what are those like? It's less than 1,000 though, right? It's not cheap, but it's like 500
Well,
or something.
it depends on what kind you get.
Yeah,
Like the top of the line is Pixelbook right now, or maybe it's Slate. But yeah, top of the line ones are comparable to MacBook Air in pricing, but
wow, yeah,
the
Pixelbook.
more, yeah, the more standard ones are a few $100. Like the ones that kids use in schools are maybe 200, 300, and
Got it. And that's not
and
bad if you know cost acquisition.
exactly.
If you're getting, I mean, what was the math? And it would be like you'd get an account for 10 grand or 100 grand, and then what is 300, 400, $500 if you get that kind of a return?
Exactly, and the conversion rates were through the roof with that because the campaign was something like um, if you basically sign up for a call with a rep, then we'll send you the laptop for
Okay.
free. So it's a demo call, right? So
Okay, so there
you're
was one step before they didn't just out of
yeah,
the
yeah.
blue get.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did sign up for the demo, and people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a laptop if I sit through half hour of a demo of some random thing,"
Yeah,
and
I would do that in a heartbeat.
exactly. So it was like almost everybody signed up for the demo, right? And then when they actually see the demo, they're like, "Oh, we could actually use this." So you can imagine the conversion rate, right?
Yeah. Well, and I guess targeting would make a lot of sense right here because I think everyone would say yes, and that could be a problem too. I mean, think
Right.
about like trade shows where there's a really cute stuffed animal. I'm signing up. Here's my badge. It's for my kid. I don't even know what your thing
Exactly.
is. I don't even care, but I'm going to
Right.
say yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But if you picked and you talked about the targeting, the segmentation, you picked all the right people, then and it's going to be a yes, and that just
Yeah.
gets your sales team in at bat, and it's worth
Mm-hmm.
paying lots of money for that.
Totally.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, direct mail probably is dying as a channel as we speak, but
I think so. Just because of the
um,
contamination concept,
just
like
because
when
people are not in
someone
their offices, where are you going to send stuff?
you don't know where they live. That's a great point. You'd have to
Yeah.
have a middle step like you talked about, where it was like,
Hmm.
take this demo, and then you give us your address, and then we'll send you a tchotchke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I have a feeling that not many people are going to volunteer their home addresses to get
Right.
something
Right.
these
We
days.
we do
But
something like that.
yeah.
On our side, we have this thing where for people with marketing automation, um, you hop on a call with us for like 25 minutes. We go through some questions to help you figure out where you were at in this roadmap. You get a
Hmm.
score between 0 and 10. And And it's like, cool. It's like, okay, you're a 2 out of 10, but your next step is number 3. Go for that. And like, it's a really cool little conversation. It's not really
Yeah.
salesy at all. And if they do that, then we send them a copy of my book. And so that's kind of a cool thing. They give us their quarantine address afterward to send to you.
Yeah. It's got to be very valuable to them. Like they're not going to give you an address for a pair of socks. That's what I'm saying.
See, it depends on what kind of socks. If it's like nice expensive hiking socks,
That's true. That's
all
true.
the biz dev guys out there listening to this show, send them over.
Yes, correct.
But
Socks
it's a
can
good
be actually pretty cool.
It
Yeah.
would be like some like really nice hiking socks. Because those get kind of pricey. It's weird.
Yeah. But you made me think of something. Direct mail is dying probably as a channel, or at least it's scaling down for sure. But the e-gifts are probably gonna go way up. Like, oh, here's a coffee gift card for you, or hey, here's an Amazon, right?
the
Card.
ones you can send a link or send credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Add this to
Yeah.
your Starbucks account,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. Knowing that people are probably going out on their own, you don't need
Yeah.
their home address for the physical thing.
No.
You know what Salesforce did recently? Very nice of them.
Mm-hmm.
They said, thank you for being a marketing champion, or, thank you just being you, and
Yep.
smiley face. And then they're like, we can send you one of these cool things, but you can pick. And so there was like a travel themed box of goodies, and there was a health and wellness one, and then with like yoga mat and candle and this and that. There was a cooking one with different kinds of salts and spices, and one of those little racks that holds a cookbook. So it was like, oh, you get to pick and choose, and then you input your own address into that thing. Not as direct. I think it's more of a thank you. But to your point, you want kind of an intermediate step to be able to know they're the right ones to talk to, and then you can offer them that thing.
Right. Yeah. With an intermediate step, it makes more sense.
Would you do a laptop thing again? Would you do anything like that, you think?
Uh, well, it depends where I end up being, right? If it helps, if the ROI is there, then why not? I would test it again for
Right.
sure. Yeah.
It's a good question, and you kind of get in the mind of your buyer to figure out what they may like. It's sometimes
Mm-hmm.
can be hard. A friend of mine was asking, what kind of a gift can I give one of my clients? And she was in the HR business, and so I think her clients were HR, or maybe they were CTOs. I'm not sure, but all of my friends and I were like throwing ideas at her, like, "Oh, get her this, or get her that, or this gift basket. It's a spa in a box, and or you can get actually a personalized bobblehead of someone's face, which is interesting.
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
I've seen
but it's
that.
like, what will people like universally? But I guess that's in the one to few category of like
Yeah.
setting up something universal. Maybe for the one to one, you actually get them something that you stalked them on Facebook or something. You figured out they like this thing, and you send it to them.
You know what I think generally works really well right now
Yeah.
is deriving social good from
Ooh, yeah.
whatever you end up doing. So if you're thinking of what to give or what to send or what to use in direct mail or even in electronic mail campaign, if you say, hey, we're going to give you a gift certificate to help your local business of your choice, whatever it is, or we're going to not send you a Starbucks gift card, but we'll send you this mom and pop shop gift card that's like in your zip code, to help them through this difficult time, because a lot of the small businesses are impacted. And if you can bring those in, not only you're appealing to your prospects and customers' sense of trying to be good, right? But also you're actually helping them,
True. You are
right?
actually helping. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think connecting the small businesses with the sense of trying to help within yourself and the customer can be really life changing.
Absolutely. And to your point, it actually does help. When you first mentioned
Mm-hmm.
the social good, I was wondering if you're going to go there because I've also gotten something that says, hey, we want to send you a gift. And the only options were donating to one of 5 charities. And
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, that's cool, but like I have my own charity that I support and really more passionate about. So I'm not as passionate about these other ones. I don't know if they're good or not, and I want to be responsible and check them out, but I don't have time to check them out. So it was it was a little different. Not that I always want something sent to my house or free coffee. I like helping people out, but it was just, it kind of, I don't know, it felt like, ooh, I need to look at them to really evaluate. I don't know which one, I've never seen these before. They weren't just like the ones you've heard of.
Right.
So it's like, do I just click and just do that? And then why are they doing it that way? It was just kind of, there's more questions than, it's almost like more friction in the process than you'd expect
Mm-hmm.
for that, as opposed to just, to your point, hey, there's a local, business, the local sandwich shop or the local whoever, we're
Yeah.
going to help them out, give them a little influx of cash because we know they're all struggling.
Right. And if you put a picture of the owner or something and share their personal story, then people can
Yeah.
connect to them even deeper. And yeah, it helps too.
I wonder if you could do that, some big company, Intuit or something, some big company that do that by region. So dynamically drop in the shop owner and their story and support them across hundreds of communities. That'd be a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do a lot with, we work a lot with small businesses and we are trying to help them as much as we can right now.
Totally.
And there's all kinds of things that Intuit does, which are great. Like we had this tradition of doing pop-ups where some small business would come visit us on site and showcase their products and people could buy, just the employees could buy whatever from
Oh,
them
that's
at
cool.
the in site. But we keep doing that. We just do it virtually now. We have virtual pop-ups where small businesses show their products and how their business was impacted and share their stories and what they've been doing. And with the scale of Intuit, of course, it helps to even just show it to employees. But think about doing that at like showing it to your prospects and all of your customers and showcasing businesses that way. And it could be huge.
Yeah, it really could.
Hmm.
Where do you think all this is going? Like, what's the future? Future of ABM, future of marketing?
Yeah,
Talking about the decline of certain channels and the increase of.
right, right. So definitely digital marketing is only gonna grow and grow and grow. Account-based stuff will also continue to grow because a focus on accounts is always going to be important.
Right.
Um, but some channels will change, like events shifting from physical to virtual, direct mail from mail sends to the offices to potentially electronic or donations or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, it's yeah, digital is probably going to become even more competitive because everybody's online and shifting to cloud from on-prem. Yeah, it will be very interesting. Very interesting. Times are
Yeah,
changing.
things are definitely in flux. They're
Yeah.
all, it's in change, and I think there's a lot of companies that recognize that, but other companies are like, I just want to hold on to how I've been doing this and keep doing it the way
Hmm.
I've been doing. And I mean, have you seen some companies respond faster and versus slower to change and adoption, and they're kind of dragging their feet, like, no, take me back to 2019 or 1990.
Hmm. Yeah, we actually had this exercise at one of our offsites that happened when Shelter in Place started, where we had a list of our small business customers,
Yeah.
and we wanted to. We had some small amount of money to spend on their products, and we could choose who we could spend it on. And we reviewed their websites to see how they've adjusted to COVID situation. And
Right.
what struck me is some of the small businesses, in fact, went out of their way to be like, we'll do free shipping for you. We now started offering masks. We are working with XYZ company to make it easier for you to get to us or to our products or whatever it is.
Right.
While others have done nothing. And the ones that have done nothing oftentimes are the ones that actually would be impacted first. Like, for example, a spa, right? A spa that has some kind of skincare line.
Right.
You have to go immediately and put all of your skincare online so people could actually buy it. Otherwise, how are you going to survive? Because nobody's going to come in, right?
No one is. Yeah.
Yeah, like start a blog and share content and tips on relaxation or massage or whatever it is that you can teach people,
Right.
right? And the ones that are not doing that yet, I hope by now most people are doing that, but if they're not, they probably already are dead.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're going to suspend an account, but I think what we'll see is just people slowly going back to it, whether or not your state is going all in or not, or whatever the case. People have their own individual feelings, and some will go early, but I think the
Mm-hmm.
bulk of us will be a little bit late, and then a lot of people will be way late, toward the end of the year. So you have to adjust, to your point, adjust to
Yeah.
the digital side, people being remote. But there's pain. There's still customer pain points. They're at a different location. Maybe they have new pains. Like you can't collaborate anymore in person. You have to do it online. And is there things we can help with that? There's all sorts of different angles you can take for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Well, I'm curious. Who are you? How did you become? I know what you studied, and you didn't study marketing in school, but take us back. How did you become this like marketing? I mean, you've done so much in so many of these companies, and you're really a thought leader. I've seen your posts on LinkedIn. Can you take us back in time, like little Masha days? Like, where did you grow up? What did you want to be when you're growing up, and all that?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I grew up in the middle of Russia, which technically is Siberia,
No
in in
kidding.
in the town called Novosibirsk, and I have an article on Medium about growing up in Siberia where I debunk a bunch of myths about it. So you should definitely check it out. But I grew up there. When I was in school, I was dreaming of studying psychology actually.
Okay.
And in my hometown, the part where I lived was kind of in this more research institutes and science focused part where the university was. And it was a major university, it was like number three in Russia.
Oh wow.
So there was no question about where I'm going to go to school. It was that university.
Okay.
And there, psychology department was just opening up the year that I started college, and my family basically convinced me that it's brand new. There's lots of therapists out there. It's a very competitive market. So don't do that. Find something that you like, something else that is more established, that will give you more solid career,
Yeah.
and et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, well, okay, definitely not interested in math or physics or humanities that much. Maybe languages, but what kind of career can you get with that?
Right.
So what was left was like chemistry or biology.
Right.
And I was
I
like,
feel
all
like
right, so
parents all over the world have these conversations with their kids, no matter what country you're in.
totally, yeah.
Yeah.
It was our dinner conversation for probably years.
Yeah.
Like, so Masha, have you thought about what you're gonna be when you grow up some more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So ended up what I ended up doing was biology,
Okay.
and I started studying there in Novosibirsk State University, and then transferred after my second year to UC Santa Cruz, which was kind of a shift, going from Siberia to Santa Cruz.
Yeah. What triggered that? Like, were you just applying for other schools while you're at that one school, or?
No, what triggered it was my parents actually moved to the US first because
Oh.
my dad got a job here. He's a software engineer, and so my family was already here, and I came to visit them a few times. In fact, I went to high school for a little bit here and then went back. But living there without my parents was very different than
Yeah.
living there with my parents, where I
Right.
was shielded, right? And facing reality of living in Siberia without my family, I was like, well, I actually don't have to if I don't want to,
Right.
right? So I transferred to Santa Cruz. And when I transferred, I already knew that I didn't really like biology, but I was like, well, maybe working at a biotech company is going to be way cooler than
Right.
studying it.
Right.
So I went through with it, graduated, and went to work at a biotech company or two, where it was a very cool product and project where we worked on HIV and malaria vaccines, and it
Oh
was all
wow.
grand and, for humanity's sake. But the day to day was working with live animals
Oh
and
geez.
in the lab with no people, with no results. Because when you do research, the results may or may not eventually happen in like months or years to come, right? And I'm very results driven, just like you, and that was difficult. So I was like, okay, I don't think I can stick with it for much longer.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
that would be like little bunny rabbits and stuff, or mice, or
Mice, rats, yeah.
okay. I don't know. It's kind of hard to get like too lovey-dovey with a mouse, I guess. I don't know. But like
They're
anything,
cute.
I mean, I know there's Mickey Mouse, but like it's kind of a
Yeah,
stretch. But if it was like a bigger animal, like cute
yeah,
little furry bunny rabbits and stuff, that's
yeah.
tough. Like it's like on one hand, it's kind of like the food industry, right? And you know on one hand you want people to eat, but on the other hand, you're like maybe you don't want to know that the reason they know this makeup is safe is because they've like done crazy things to test it, or we've solved HIV or something, and we've done it because we've like gone through a bunch of animals, you know? It's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was hard emotionally, but also it just didn't align with me and who
Right,
I am.
right. Were your
And
parents in the area too? Were you able to like go back and
they're
join them?
yeah, they're still in the area.
Oh,
They
cool.
live in Bay Area. Yeah.
Nice.
But I had a great manager who saw that I was kind of not super excited about what I was doing, and he was like,
Yeah.
you should really think about how you can be with people and just get out of the lab and just think about that. And he's like, I can read your palm. And that was kind of neat. I was like, oh, okay, where's this coming from? But yeah, sure. And he's like, yeah, I see that this you're gonna have a career change. This is not for you. And let me know if you have any thoughts about what you'd like to do, and I'll help. And I was like, well, marketing sounds really glamorous, like something creative and with people, not
Right.
in the lab. He's like, yeah, great. I know this guy and who works in business development. Let me introduce you, and maybe you can help out. So
Mm-hmm.
he introduced me to this guy, and I started helping out with projects on the side in my own time with some market research. And that's how my marketing career started. Because then after
Awesome.
that, I had that on the resume, and I joined a company that was looking for people specifically who had science background, but also were interested in marketing. So
Yeah.
from there was just smooth sailing.
That makes so much sense though. When you have that technical background, you can, but you love people and you love the art side of it.
Hmm.
It's a great combination because then you can play on both sides. You can understand the technical aspect, but
Hmm.
then really speak to the person and the psychology that you wanted to study at the very beginning. You can actually
Yep.
do that. It's like application of psychology in marketing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all coming together.
Yeah, it is. It really is,
Yeah.
and you don't have to be in Siberia to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Have
Or
you
work
been
with
back?
mice.
Have you gone back to visit?
Hmm. Yeah, I go every few years. I still have some family there and friends.
It can you describe it? Is it like I know there's a bunch of myths. We'll have to check out that medium blog, but is it like always super cold? If you were to describe it as like a part of the U.S. or Canada,
Hmm.
what kind of part would you?
I would say it's like kind of like Minnesota in a way.
Got it.
You get cold winters. I mean, Siberia is colder winters.
I believe it.
Um, yeah, snow stays from something like November through April sometimes.
Wow.
But the summer is really warm to the point of you can go swimming and sunbathing and whatnot. So summers are mm, kind of like Chicago minus the wind.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Not
It's not
very
bad. It's not
windy.
all bad. I can see why you'd want to write
No.
about it.
Yeah, 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 exactly. There's no bears. Definitely lots of vodka, but only to those who want it.
Right.
You're not required to drink it. Yeah, I mean it's beautiful. It's very green. Like
Very green.
I grew up in the woods basically,
Oh,
among
that's
the
awesome.
trees, which is something I love dearly still, and I try to go to the woods as often as I can
Oh,
here.
100%. And even your background has the woods behind it. So
Right? Yeah.
unfortunately, you get to see my orange and white wall, but I get to see your cool background. So
Yeah. Check out the Airbnb post.
yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, Airbnb, future
Hmm.
sponsor of the show.
Right?
Man. So and then now, what are you doing now? So now you're sort of the focal point, and yeah, describe what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so now I work on the central team at Intuit that sort of helps connect the dots among different business segments at Intuit. because we have some B2B focused teams and some B2C focused teams and teams that work with partners, and they each historically have different backgrounds and were acquired or developed at different times. So they have their own org structures and their own technology stack. So my focus is specifically technology related. It's for any go-to-market technology, best practices and innovation, staying on top of trends, and making sure I help all of those different segments solve their pain points around technology, help them connect with each other even, because they are sometimes they end up being pretty siloed in the work that they do. So our team helps them connect with each
Okay.
other and as Intuit to come across as one brand rather than a bunch of separate products.
Right. More cohesive and more
Mm-hmm.
unified that way. That makes
Yeah,
sense. So that way every message echoes the overall brand too.
right.
Kind of lift everybody up at the same time. That's cool. I
Mm-hmm.
have a hypothetical question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have a time machine in New Hampshire.
Nice.
It sounds like New Hampshire is kind of like a mild form of Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Definitely.
because have you been up this way, New England?
No,
No, you should tell
I
Boston,
have to
that
go.
area.
I would love to go.
Boston's fantastic. Yeah, let
Yeah.
me know when you come up here. I'll introduce you to people, and man, it's amazing. Lobster. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah, right.
Sign me up.
Right? Seriously,
Yeah.
that's all I need to say usually.
Yeah.
But there's mountains, and when you describe the green, that's how I grew up too. Like I've
Yeah.
got green around me, though. There's a city. I can I can get milk. I don't have to drive maybe an hour to get
Mm-hmm.
it. I can just down
Right.
the
Right.
street. But it
Right.
feels more green. I haven't got rid
Yeah.
of that,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so I may have a time machine here,
Mm-hmm.
and if you were to use that time machine once COVID's all done and all that,
Right.
we'll clean it down. Uh,
Yep.
and go back in time to talk to yourself
Mm-hmm.
right after you graduated. Now, it could either be graduated in California or even when you're still in that year, you're still back in Russia. But you could talk to yourself and give yourself advice. What kind of things would you say? When would you go? What point in time do you think you would talk to yourself, and what kind of advice would you give yourself?
I would definitely go back to my high school self and tell myself to really listen to my intuition and not seek acceptance from people around me as much as I did.
Right.
Acceptance, of course, matters, and you want to feel supported and loved and everything, but it cannot come at a cost of not being yourself and following your own intuition.
Right. Oh, for sure. And I think as much as people even the ones that care about it. It's like acceptance from people that care about you, and as well as it's dangerous to get acceptance from people who don't give a shit about you.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
either
That's
way,
even yeah,
yeah, totally. But you're right. There's sort of a thing you can unlock when you actually are passionate about a topic. Then you're going to be way better at it than if you're just doing it for someone else's reason. I'm totally with you. I grew up with a lot of great advice, and so it was tough for me to eventually, at some point, be like, what do I actually want to do?
mm-hmm.
And am I doing this because I want someone else to be like, you're amazing, or like, that's great, or just do I actually enjoy this and I want to do this for fun? Hobbies,
Right,
job, anything like that. It's definitely one of those
exactly.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's for anything. And it's kind of an easy concept when you hear it, but you don't actually feel it
Right.
until it clicks somehow. And for me, it clicked. I don't know, not in high school for sure,
Yeah. When did it
which
click?
is
If you were to find a point in time,
I would say like late 20s, early 30s.
like when you were starting to do those marketing projects or something like that, or
No, it was well into it. I mean, switching from biology to marketing was like a step towards it,
yeah.
but really understanding what it means to live more authentically happened way later.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Cool advice. Well, I know you do a lot of coaching. Can you tell me about that? Because I think even what we're talking about now, even we've kind of gotten into the warm fuzzy stuff where, um, people might call it cliche, but actually it's the most important stuff,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
like what drives you and how you find happiness. So
Hmm.
what are what's the coaching you're doing now, and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so there are a few things. My interest in psychology definitely persisted through life.
Yeah.
I've been always interested in it. I go to workshops and retreats and I take classes, whether it's now online or before more physical education or physical location education.
Right.
But when I was at Google, it really fell into place for me because there's a big network for people who work at Google to support each other as coaches. It's like a
Okay.
peer-to-peer, yeah, peer-to-peer coaching. You can get other help there too. There's classes in that thing, and Google actually trains you if you're interested in it. So I was like, oh yeah, sign me up. I'd love to do that. And then
Wow.
you are allowed to officially spend a percentage of your time doing that. So
Jeez.
I signed up because I was like, oh, this is great. This is perfect because it's combining my interest in psychology with an ability to help people, which is another driver of mine. And I did that, and at the same or around the same time, I also signed up for like a program outside of Google, coactive coaching, in Palo Alto. Did that. Then I started going to very specific niche workshops, like for example, Hakomi, which is applying somatic psychology principles to like coaching or therapy or whatever else you want to apply it to.
Right.
And as I started doing that at Google, I also started using this app on my phone that you can sign up and digitally coach people.
Nice.
That was fun. And I just kind of naturally tend to talk people through their issues as they arise,
Right.
which is a good and a bad thing sometimes.
Right.
Like, my husband is probably tired of me coaching him all the time, but
Did he sign up, or does
oh,
he yeah,
no,
he's
no.
voluntold?
Yeah, and so now my job actually is coaching teams, right? Or
Mm,
like coaching teams how to be more efficient, how to solve their pain points, how to connect with other teams. And
wow.
at Intuit, we have this program where you can become an innovation catalyst, which is essentially a coach for teams, and any team can sign up for coaching from an innovation catalyst, and we help each other that way too.
Wow. Innovation catalyst. What a cool name for it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I could see, so you sort of coach people on the personal level, as well as, Intuit sounds pretty smart to have done this, Google too, to
Yeah.
where you might have some teams, they may be stuck in a routine, but they
Right.
want to get out of it, and they're like, I don't know how. How
Yeah.
do we do that
Yeah.
without getting in fights? Let's bring in
Right.
someone who can help us innovate, like, be a little
Hmm.
catalyst for it. They can do it, but
Exactly.
then they'll get the fire started or something.
Right.
Wow. Neat. That sounds
Yeah.
fun. It sounds like you're in a pretty darn fun position. Like you just get
Hmm.
to spark little wildfires all over the place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Causing trouble. Like, do you do does it always work out, or does it end up like, because with change and growth, it can be uncomfortable, right? So I wonder, um, is there ever like that kind of a uncomfortableness with it in the process, or people just, I mean, what's it like to be sort of going to different groups and kind of pushing them? I mean, how far can you push them before they
Yeah,
find you?
there are actually things you can do when you facilitate a discussion
Mhm.
to address different scenarios, like somebody being very vocal during meeting and everybody else is quiet, or not a lot of people are engaging and they should be, or somebody feels very passionate about something. How do you like bring them down to a calm
Yeah.
level? So yeah, as part of our innovation catalyst training, we learn how to deal with all of those situations. So now I feel like there's nothing that would really make me uncomfortable, especially as a facilitator. I mean,
Yeah.
people try to make each other uncomfortable, but that's why I'm there to help them deal with that.
Right.
In
So you're
the
saying you're good. You've done this a few times, enough to be, many times really, but you've done this so many times that you're not going to be bothered by someone acting on their emotions because they don't know how to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
you've got this is cool. You've got certain techniques and tactics and things you've already thought of and have already been sort of shared with your other catalysts to be able to go, okay, if Chuck is super loud, how do we get him to shut the hell up so somebody else can get a word in edgewise? I'm just thinking you push the tray of pastries over to him. You're like, here you go, man. Have
It's
one of these.
one of the things you can do for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Hey, here's some water, right? But
Yeah.
in a virtual environment, it's a little bit
A
more
little harder.
difficult.
Just
But
no, you just mute him.
yeah, if the worst comes to
Right.
it.
Worst comes to worst. All right.
Yeah.
You're on timeout.
Yeah.
Who else wants to say something?
Hmm.
Oh man. Wow. Any tips from the battlefields of innovation for people as they're in their own groups trying to do this? Bring in an innovation catalyst, or any kind of suggestions on how they can do this with themselves?
Yeah, if they have a chance to bring someone who does this, I would say definitely do it, especially for
Yeah.
critical points in time, like when you're deciding on a strategy and people are not aligning, or if you faced some kind of a roadblock and you can't move forward past it, then bringing someone in externally who's not involved and invested into whatever the problem is,
Yeah.
just by doing that, you're already helping. It doesn't even have to be a trained innovation catalyst. It could be any person. Bring your mom, who
Right.
can sit there because everybody else is so emotionally invested that it becomes hard to see
It does.
what's happening, right? But to do it yourselves, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a framework that every problem could be solved with.
Interesting.
And it's actually a coaching program that I've applied in almost every situation in life, and it's called Grow. It's like the very first thing you learn when you get into coaching. It's you talk about the goal, then you research your current situation, you talk about options for how to bridge the gap, and then finally what you're willing to commit to of those options of how you're going to fix it.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, as you start talking about the goal and the options of bridging that gap from where you are now to the goal, um, I would say always try to go as broad as you can, and as you're brainstorming those options. So something like, if you had unlimited resources, time, and everything, how would you solve this problem, right? Because those solutions might not work, but at least they spark the minds, and they get you going, and then you can be like, oh, actually this would work, but what would work, and then something else happens and comes up.
Right. I can totally tell it's a passion too, because you just light up when you're talking about it. Sounds really fun. And to your point, I love the Grow framework. While at the same time, I have always brought in an outside person for like quarterly meetings, strategy meetings, because that way I can be a part of them as opposed to
Hmm.
trying to facilitate and
Exactly.
be in it. That how do I
Right.
shut myself up? I can't, and so
Yeah,
yeah, having someone else.
I've definitely purposefully invited another innovation catalyst to my meetings that where I'm trying to solve something with the team.
Nice.
It definitely helps.
Wow. What's a first step if someone was listening to this and wanted to get into coaching and they also have that passion that you do for helping other people out? Would you point them at one program where you'd start? I know you've been in a lot of them. You kind of sampled all
Mhm.
of them. Anything you'd recommend they check out or go get trained in or certified on?
I would say first step would be to talk to people who are already coaches
Okay.
to get their perspective and to really understand what it entails. Because there's a lot of misconceptions about what coaching is. Like somebody thinks like, oh, I'm gonna go hire a coach who's gonna go and solve all of my problems. Well, that's not the case, right?
So what
Coach
is
is
the
not
case?
a
What do they do if they don't
right.
solve
They don't solve your problems. They
it?
help you solve your own problems
Oh, okay,
by
got it.
by unblocking yourself from yourself, basically,
Right.
right?
Interesting. So yeah, definitely talk to another coach
Hmm.
and get people's insights and hear their experiences and that kind of thing.
Right,
Awesome.
exactly. Yeah, and then if you feel like still you're into it and you're ready for it, then there are definitely multitude of programs. Some of them are certified, some of them are not. The certification is kind of weird. because it's not regulated really.
Right. Everyone has a
Um,
cert. But do you have any
yeah.
favorites? Like, if there's a bunch of scammy ones out there. Are there any good ones?
Yeah, I like two the most. One is Coactive Institute, and the other one is IPEC, IPEC.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Well, on that note, how can people contact you? Where do you want them to reach out? What social sites, what URLs, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, just my first last name, Masha Finkelstein. Um, Twitter, Masha3003, and that's it.
Perfect. There it is. Thank you so much for coming on here. This has been a blast.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's fun hearing your story and hearing your background, but also I could totally tell that coaching is it. It's almost like I understand now when you mentioned marketing was a start to that change, but it's almost like once you did marketing and coaching,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
now you're
exactly.
really in the zone.
Mm-hmm. For
For sure. That
sure.
was kind of like me marketing, and then podcasting put me into like that place as well. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, okay, cool. I can do this all day. No problem.
Yeah, yeah. It's whatever gets you in the flow. That's what you should stick with.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, this is fantastic. For those people listening, if you've learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I've got 2 pages of notes front and back, then share this with someone, one person, 98 people, 7,000 people, whatever. LinkedIn's a great platform for that, but don't just share it. Put what you learned at the beginning of it. Write down some takeaways. There's so many things to talk about. The different campaigns, the different stories of successes, the intent data, the ideas around social good and local businesses. And man, so much good stuff in here. Masha, thank you so much for coming on here. I'll have to stay in touch and I have to stay in the loop and maybe learn some more coaching things from you in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And for those listening, this has been the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.